Modern neuroscience tells us that instead of writing down things we're thankful for in a journal, simply listening to and connecting with positive stories about people can better help shift our immune system into balance. It can help us move from a state of constant anxiety towards motivation. So 3 days a week, I'm sharing stories we can feel good about. Mondays, you'll hear a story from the past to be thankful for. On Wednesdays, I'll tell an inspiring story from the present. And Fridays, you'll head into the weekend with a story to keep you optimistic about our future. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to My Good 3. Alright, happy Wednesday. A few weeks ago on Halloween, I spent some of my time watching my kids trick-or-treat, but most of Halloween night, I was manning the station behind a bucket of candy, trying to guess the costumes of some of the random kids cruising our street. A bunch of kids grabbed more candy than I said they could. Rude. A third forgot to say trick-or-treat. Most forgot to say thank you. Overall, it was a good night, but there were a few kids that made me lean to my grumpy old man side and question whether kids these days are being taught any values. Just when I start to think I've got kids these days figured out, I get reminded that I'm not paying close enough attention. This is a story about not letting a few samples affect your opinion of the lot, because when nobody's looking, it turns out kids these days are probably kinder than we were. It was time to gear up and get ready for another great year of trick-or-treating in Woodhaven, Michigan, a city of about 13,000 people just to the southwest of Detroit. For Amy Schmitt and her son Jacob, Halloween is one of their favorite days of the year. Unfortunately, 2 days before Halloween, Jacob had a medical emergency, and they were forced to be in the hospital dealing with his condition. Knowing that the neighborhood was a big attraction for trick-or-treaters, Amy was able to get back to the house long enough to put up a sign in the yard that read, "My son is in the hospital, sorry, no candy," so the kids in the neighborhood wouldn't be disappointed when they went to the door. One of those neighborhood kids was a 6-year-old named Mia Sayin. Mia did a lap around the neighborhood with her dad, filled her bucket full, and then went back home, and they sat down to rest while she looked over her candy. She then looked up at her dad, James, and said, "Dad, can we go out again?" He said sure, so they went back out. But Mia hadn't told her dad why. She filled her bucket again, and then at one point she stopped, turned to James, and said, "I don't want this candy, I want to leave it here." They happened to be right in front of Amy and Jacob's home with the sign, and then it clicked for James. He realized that she felt bad and didn't want anybody not to have candy on Halloween. While Amy and Jacob sat in the hospital on Halloween night, Amy continued to hear notifications from her doorbell camera on her phone. Eventually, the noise was unavoidable and caused her to take a closer look, since she wasn't expecting trick-or-treaters with the sign up in the yard. She checked, and what she saw was heartwarming. Kid after kid, dressed in their costumes, were coming to their door and dumping their own candy out for Jacob. There were no parents in the videos, just wave after wave of kids doing what they knew was a kind thing for another kid who couldn't participate. Not long after, word spread, and Amy was eventually interviewed by the local news station. She said, "For these kids to do that without their parents there was remarkable. I mean, it's just amazing what these parents have raised these kids to be." I think it's normal when you age to come to quick conclusions about people, kids included. I like this story because it directly challenges that narrative. It makes me think that kids now might be quicker to think for themselves than we were when I was a kid. Or at least they're more confident to follow what they think is right, instead of worrying about what others might think. Mia Sayin is 6 years old, and she's setting a great example for the kids in her neighborhood. And for the slightly skeptical adults out there, it's good to have kids like Mia to challenge what we think we know. thank you for listening. I realize this podcast won't be successful without your help. So if you'd like to rate it, or better yet, review it, wherever you get your podcasts, that would really help. And if you're on Instagram, go to @mygood3, THREE, to vote each episode up or down. I'm also excited to read more Good 3 stories from listeners. So just go to our website, mygood3.com, and submit a story of your own from the past, present, or future, or all three, and maybe I'll use it in an episode. Thanks again. Here's to hoping My Good 3 can set the stage for your good week.